We could see a disconnect where adults have a big focus on development and young people will value connection with friends a lot more. So what can we parents control here? First, we need to look at motivation. On this scale, where do you think computer games are? Right? What about school? What about university? When do you think you can challenge them to work harder? We need to be observant of our children's behavior in sport. Do they feel pressure to train? Would this lead to a long-term involvement or success or to a professional career? Perhaps this is what many teenagers feel about school. It's boring, but school is mandatory. Most sports got some boring activities. Let's say fitness training, for example, like running instead of actually playing the game. It could be an acceptance to do it because there's a value for them to get better. But if this was the highest level of their motivation for the sport, would it lead to a long-term involvement or even a pro career? Look at all the champions like Federer, Williams' sister, Nadal, Djokovic, Tsitsipas, Sabalenka, Osaka. And what about Medvedev's and Raducanu's performance in the US Open? Now, all of them would have had the inner burning desire to push themselves beyond the capability and become their best. Have you ever asked your child what they like about tennis and what they don't like? Have you asked them how they want to be supported by you to be their best? Sport is a choice. We saw a disconnect between adults and young athletes earlier. So we know intrinsic motivation is the key for long-term success or any success. Our role as parents are to observe and to guide our children to stay in the game, not to push them out of the game. There is a lot of development going on when growing up as well. You know, we're creatures of belonging, in particular during puberty and adolescence, when we start seeking connection and approval outside our immediate family. There is a time when fitting into a group is important for our confidence. Peer group pressure can often change the behavior. We saw this in the study where friends were big motivated to be engaged in sport. Anyone with a teenage daughter knows how hormones are running absolutely wild. But this is obviously very natural. I've got a 16-year-old daughter and I coach 15 to 18-year-old girls, and I need to connect with them every time I meet them so I know on what level they are at. I have to be observant to know how to guide them. Same with both my son and my daughter. I need to connect first before I can provide the support. When my son was 15, he did something I consider really stupid. I said, "Don't you think about the future? What are you thinking about, eh?" The truth is that the brain is not fully developed until around 25, so it was impossible for him to think about the consequences of his action. During puberty, the biological clock can really be challenging. So the biological clock can be out as much as 48 months. A 12-year-old could be about 10 or 14. So my daughter was taller than me at 13 and way taller than most of her friends, which was very handy when you play volleyball and netball. But at 16, many of her friends is about the same height. And some are shorter, but they are a lot more agile. So not even the best coach can predict if a 12-year-old will be a great athlete at 15, 16 and beyond. It's even impossible for Servara, who coached Medvedev, to pick a 17-year-old to become the future #1 player. But everyone has potential, so we need to be patient.